He left home chasing a moment of weakness, but returned to a silence so deep it felt like punishment. The door was locked, his wife was gone, and the newborn he loved had vanished. Hello beautiful souls and welcome to Ms. Love Stories channel. The place where love, drama, and unforgettable moments come alive. I'm so thrilled you're here, ready to dive into stories that will make your heart race, bring tears, and leave you believing in the power of love. Before we begin, I want to get to know all of you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because in the next video, I'll give a special shout out to some of you amazing viewers from around the world. I can't wait to see how far our love story family reaches. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you never miss a single emotional journey. Get ready to feel, laugh, cry, and fall in love all over again. Because every story we share here is for you. Now, the story begins. Rose. The night air tasted of guilt long before Adrian understood why. He stood outside the bar, collar open, breath fogging in the dim city light. Music thumped from inside. Too loud. Too carefree for the storm churning in his chest. He checked his phone for the 5th time. No messages. No missed calls. No "where are you?" from Daniela. That silence cut deeper than any accusation. Inside, laughter spilled behind him. Careless, drunken sounds that clashed violently with the quiet, trembling pulse inside his ribs. This wasn't who he wanted to be. But somehow, tonight, this was who he had become. Leaving already? A soft voice said behind him. Adrian didn't turn fully. I shouldn't have come. You say that every time, the woman Marissa replied. Her heels clicked closer. But you still show up. Yeah. His jaw tightened. And that's the problem. Marissa placed a hand on his arm, gentle but confident. You don't owe me explanations. I owe someone, he muttered. He stepped away before she could respond. Her perfume lingered in the cold air. A faint sweetness that only deepened his nausea. He reached his car, leaned his forehead against the roof, and closed his eyes. He hadn't meant to cross the line. He hadn't meant for the night to stretch into something he couldn't take back. But mistakes didn't ask for permission before ruining your life. His fingers trembled as he opened the car door. I have to go home, he whispered to himself. I have to fix this. I have to. Across the city, Daniela rocked the newborn against her chest, humming a lullaby her mother used to sing. Her eyes were swollen, cheeks stained with dried tears she never had time to wipe away. The apartment glowed with warm lamplight, but the warmth never reached her heart. The baby shifted, letting out a soft, sleepy whimper. Shimmy amor, it's okay, she whispered. Mommy's here. Mommy's always here. Her voice cracked on the last word. She glanced at the clock. 1:17 a.m. Adrian wasn't home. Again. Her gaze drifted to the living room doorway, expecting, hoping, to see his silhouette appear, smelling like cologne and night air, whispering, Lo siento, Danny. I'm here. But the doorway stayed empty. Daniela lowered her head, resting her cheek against the baby's soft hair. She inhaled the newborn scent. Milk, innocence, the only thing keeping her from breaking apart completely. They had promised each other forever. But forever felt strangely quiet these days. Cold. Like something slipping through her fingers no matter how hard she tried to hold it. She didn't expect perfection. She never demanded it. But she needed presence. Someone to share the weight of sleepless nights, diaper changes, doctor appointments, her anxieties, her loneliness, her exhaustion. And instead, she got silence. The apartment felt like a museum of what their love used to be. Frozen moments, faded memories, shattered promises. Her phone buzzed. She reached for it so quickly the baby stirred in her arms. She checked the screen. A message from her sister. How are you, Danny? Is he helping with the baby? Her eyes blurred instantly. She didn't reply. Adrian drove through the quiet streets. The city lights smearing past his windshield like streaks of regret. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, until his knuckles whitened. He pictured Daniela at home. Hair messy, baby on her chest, exhaustion in her eyes, waiting for a man who kept failing her. He hated himself for that image. Hated how true it felt. He whispered her name into the empty car. Daniela. The word sounded like a prayer and a confession. He pulled into their street. heart pounding faster as he approached the apartment building. A single window glowed dimly upstairs. Theirs. Daniela was awake. And she was waiting. He took a deep breath, wiped his face with trembling hands and stepped out. Every step toward the door felt heavy, like walking through water. He wasn't a bad man, not in his soul, but tonight he had been weak, stupid, lost. He reached the door. Stopped. His key felt cold in his hand. "Please, just let me fix this," he whispered to the wood grain. He inserted the key and turned. The lock clicked. But not the click he expected. It was the click of a deadbolt he didn't remember being locked. He pushed the door. It didn't open. He frowned, jiggled the key again. The door refused him. She locked it. For the first time all night, true dread slammed into him. "Daniela," he called softly. Silence. He knocked gently. "Baby, open the door. Please." Nothing. His chest tightened painfully. He knocked harder. "Daniela. It's me. I'm home." Still nothing. A chill slipped down his spine. He knocked again, urgent, panicked. "Daniela. Answer me." No footsteps. No crying baby. No sound at all. He grabbed his phone, dialed her. He heard the faint vibration from inside. But she didn't pick up. He swallowed hard. "Please, Danny, don't do this to me." He leaned his forehead against the cold wood. "Please." His voice broke. He tried calling again. And again. And again. Each unanswered ring stabbed deeper. The silence in the hallway felt enormous, like the whole world was holding its breath. He pulled his hand back, knocked with more force. "Daniela, open the door. Please. I'm sorry, okay? His voice died. Because in that moment, he saw something that made his heart split open. A thin strip of light under the door. Moving. Tiny shadows. Someone was inside. But still no one answered. Inside, Daniela stood frozen. She had been right on the other side of the door, baby asleep against her shoulder, heart hammering so loudly it drowned out everything else. Adrian's voice tore at her. Her fingers hovered over the door handle. Her throat tightened. Her chest ached. Her mind screamed, "Open it. Don't open it. Let him in. Don't let him hurt you again. He still loves you. He broke you. He didn't mean it. He chose her. He didn't choose her. He's sorry. He'll say anything. You're tired. You're dying inside." Daniela squeezed her eyes shut, shaking. Then the baby whimpered softly. That sound decided everything. She stepped back from the door. Farther. And farther. Until she couldn't hear Adrian's voice anymore. Outside, Adrian realized something. She wasn't answering. Not because she was angry, but because she was gone. The apartment was too still. Too empty. Too silent, except for the faint buzz of a phone left behind, vibrating uselessly into the darkness. He staggered back a step, heart dropping into a cold pit. "Daniela," he whispered. "Where are you?" A horrifying thought struck him. He shoved the door with all his weight. Once. Twice. On the third strike, it burst open. He stumbled inside. And froze. The lights were off. The crib was empty. Her clothes gone. The baby bag missing. Her ring sat on the table beside a cold cup of tea. No note. No explanation. Nothing but absence. Adrian's scream cracked the silence. "No, no, Daniela. Daniela." But she wasn't there. His world had already left. Adrian's hands shook as he stood in the dark apartment, staring at the empty crib, the abandoned baby bag, and the cold cup of tea on the counter. Every object was a silent accusation. Each one screamed, "You chose wrong. You lost everything." He sank to the floor, leaning against the refrigerator, heart hammering so loudly it felt like it could burst through his chest. He closed his eyes, trying to imagine Daniela there, trying to picture the baby's tiny face, soft and warm in his arms, but the room offered only emptiness. Silence. Silence that cut sharper than any words. "Daniela," he whispered, voice cracking. "Where are you? Where is the baby?" The words hung in the air, unanswered, almost mocking. His throat burned with each attempt to call her, but every ring went unanswered. He could almost hear her in his mind, the way she'd hum to the baby, the lullaby that had always been their bond. Now that lullaby was a ghost, echoing only in his memory. He stumbled toward the window, peering out into the street. Nothing. No lights. No movement. Just the faint glow of distant apartments. Lives moving on while his world had stopped. Panic coiled in his stomach. He needed to find her. He had to. But where would she go? How far would she take the baby? A sudden image slammed into him. Daniela cold, holding their child tightly, eyes filled with fear, and somewhere, blaming him. The thought made him shiver violently. Every reckless choice he had made, every moment of weakness, had led to this abyss. He sank back against the wall, sliding down until his legs were drawn to his chest. Tears streamed down his face, unbidden, unstoppable. This wasn't just regret. This wasn't just guilt. This was a vacuum swallowing him whole. The absence of his wife, the absence of his child, the absence of the life he thought he had. Everything had been stripped away in one night. He remembered the night before. The perfume, the laughter, the fleeting warmth of Marissa's touch. Every memory now twisted into poison. He had thought it would be a momentary escape. But the cost was unimaginable. His phone buzzed again. Another missed call. This time he didn't answer. He couldn't. Each vibration reminded him of the life he had shattered. He leaned back against the cold kitchen wall and pressed his forehead into his hands. How did I let it happen? How could I be so stupid, so selfish? The questions ricocheted inside his skull, each one a dagger. The apartment seemed to close in on him. Shadows stretched across the walls, mocking him. Every tiny sound, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the city outside, even the ticking of the clock, felt amplified, a reminder of what he had lost. He heard a noise outside. Footsteps. A distant car door slamming. His pulse spiked. He ran to the window, flinging it open, searching the street below. Nothing. Just the empty asphalt, the streetlights flickering like weak stars. Daniela. His shout tore through the night. Please. I'm sorry. Silence. His knees buckled, and he sank to the ground again, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on him. He had always thought mistakes were temporary, that words could mend anything. But some mistakes weren't temporary. Some mistakes left scars that would never fade. And this was catastrophic. He thought of the baby, small and fragile, sleeping somewhere far from him, safe but unreachable. Each heartbeat, each cry he couldn't hear, was a knife twisting in his chest. He imagined Daniela looking back at him with eyes that no longer trusted him, feeling the betrayal he had inflicted. The guilt was suffocating. He remembered a conversation they had weeks ago, when Daniela had said softly, almost in passing, I just need to feel like we're in this together. He had laughed it off, distracted, dismissive. That tiny plea now felt like a prophecy he had failed to heed. Adrian buried his face in his hands, rocking slightly back and forth. The night stretched on, dragging him deeper into despair. His mind spun with visions. Daniela walking through the city, holding the baby close, maybe crying, maybe trembling. Where had she gone? Did she feel safe? Did she hate him as much as he hated himself? He thought of calling friends, family, anyone who might know, but hesitation froze him. Pride, fear, shame, all mixed into a paralyzing cocktail. How could he explain this? How could he face anyone? This was beyond explanation. This was devastation. Hours passed. He remained on the cold floor, a shell of the man who had left the house that morning. He could almost hear the echoes of the life they had. Laughter, soft cries, whispered, I love yous in the dark. Now all gone. He stumbled to the front door, fumbling with the lock again. Maybe she had returned. Maybe the baby was there. Maybe he could undo everything with one desperate apology. The door remained closed. His heart sank lower, the weight of reality pressing down like a physical force. She wasn't coming back tonight. And the longer he waited, the more he realized he didn't even know where to start looking. Finally, collapsing against the doorframe, he whispered, voice hoarse, trembling. I will find you. I don't care how long it takes. I will find you, and I will fix this. I promise. I promise. But even as he said it, he felt the terrifying truth. Promises were not enough. This was beyond promises. This was a reckoning. And it had just begun. In the darkness, with nothing but the faint hum of the city outside and the hollow emptiness of the apartment, Adrian finally understood the true cost of a single night of weakness. It was more than guilt, more than regret. It was the fear that the people he loved most, his wife, his child, his life, might never return to him. And in that silent, broken apartment, Adrian vowed, trembling and shattered, that he would never stop searching. No matter what. No matter who stood in his way. No matter how long it took. Because tonight had destroyed the world he thought he knew. And he would rebuild it, one impossible step at a time. The next morning, Adrian woke to an apartment half empty and silent. The bed still smelled faintly of Daniela's perfume, but she and the baby were gone. Every corner of the room whispered the same truth. She wasn't coming back, at least not yet. He sank onto the couch, staring blankly at the wall, replaying last night's nightmare over and over in his head. He felt hollow, unmoored, and for the first time truly aware of how fragile his life had become. He had always thought of himself as a man capable of control, capable of solving problems, but this was outside his control. He tried to call her again, hesitated, then deleted the number. Each ring unanswered reminded him of how far he had fallen. He was interrupted by a knock at the door. A neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, peered in cautiously. "Is everything okay, Adrian?" she asked, concern wrinkling her face. He managed a shaky smile. "Yes, just a bad night." She frowned, unconvinced. "You looked upset. Are you sure everything's all right?" "I'm fine," he said too quickly. "Really?" She lingered a moment, then left, and the apartment returned to its oppressive silence. The absence of Daniela, and the baby pressed down on him like a physical weight. He wanted to go out, to search, to demand answers, but fear and shame rooted him in place. Meanwhile, across town, Daniela sat in a small motel room, the baby asleep on her chest. Her eyes were red from crying, her mind swirling with anger, confusion, and betrayal. She hadn't left to punish him. She had left to protect herself and the baby. But even as she tried to justify her actions, she felt a hollow ache for the man she still loved, the man who had failed her in the worst way. She thought of Adrian stumbling home last night, desperate and unknowing. Her heart twisted at the memory, part of her longing to open the door and take him in, part of her terrified to ever trust him again. She whispered to herself, rocking the baby gently, not yet, mi amor. We need to be safe first." She refused to answer any of his calls. She refused to give him the comfort of knowing she was still alive. And yet, each vibration of her phone made her heart leap and sink at the same time. Adrian left the apartment in the late morning, desperate for distraction, walking through the streets in a daze. The city moved around him in a blur. People laughed, cars honked, dogs barked, but none of it touched him. Nothing mattered except the absence of his wife and child. He tried to rationalize last night's events. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe she just went to visit her sister. Maybe she just needed space. But every explanation felt hollow, and the hollow made him angrier. He went to their favorite park, the place where they had first met. Sitting on the worn wooden bench, he closed his eyes, trying to recall her smile, the warmth of her hand in his. But even the memory was tainted by guilt. "I should have been there," he muttered aloud. "I should have chosen you. I should have protected you, both of you." No one answered, of course. No one could. The park echoed his failure, and he hated the emptiness more than anything. Meanwhile, Daniela debated her own feelings. She wanted to believe he was remorseful, that he would come for them, that somehow they could rebuild what had been broken. But her fear whispered louder. How could she trust a man who chose someone else over his family, even for a single night? She paced the motel room, the baby yawning and stretching in her arms. I can't go back yet," she whispered. "Not until I know he's serious. Not until he proves he's changed." Her hands clenched tightly around the soft blanket. She remembered his apology last night, the desperation in his voice. It tugged at her heart, but she could not let her heart lead. Not now. She had to survive for herself and for the baby. Back at the apartment, Adrian returned to the empty space that had once been his home. The refrigerator hummed. The sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds. Everything was exactly as it had been the night before, unchanged and mocking. He called her again, the number going straight to voicemail. He left a message, trying to sound calm, trying to mask the panic. Daniela, I know you're mad. I know I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Please call me when you're ready. He hung up, but the silence that followed was louder than any scream. He tried to distract himself with work, emails, errands, anything to fill the empty hours. But every sound, every movement reminded him of her absence. Every small detail, the scent of the apartment, the echo of their laughter, was now a wound. By evening, exhaustion overtook him. He collapsed onto the couch, staring at the darkening room. His phone vibrated again. Another missed call. Another plea unanswered. He clenched his fists, angry at the universe, at himself, at her, at the cruel twist of fate that had put them here. I will fix this, he promised himself. I will bring them back. I will earn their trust again, even if it kills me. The next day, their worlds crossed indirectly. Adrian visited the hospital where Daniela had once gone for prenatal checkups. He spoke to nurses, administrators, trying to track her movements, desperate for a clue, a scrap of information. Daniela, meanwhile, stayed hidden, visiting the same hospital to ensure her baby's checkup, careful to remain untraceable. Her heart ached as she noticed familiar faces looking for her, but she stayed cautious. The distance between them stretched painfully, not just physically but emotionally. Each wanted the other, yet neither would bridge the gap. Resistance had become a protective shield, keeping them apart while testing the strength of their hearts. That night, Adrian returned home, exhausted and defeated. He collapsed into bed, staring at the empty space where Daniela once slept. His chest ached with the weight of longing, fear, and regret. Somewhere across town, Daniela cradled the baby, whispering soft lullabies, wishing he could see them, wishing they could be safe together. And yet, the invisible wall of mistrust, pride, and fear remained between them, unbroken. They had glimpsed the devastation, and both recoiled. Both resisted the connection that had once felt so natural. Both were forced to confront the painful reality. Love was not enough to erase betrayal. But beneath the resistance, a spark remained, a fragile, flickering ember that neither could fully extinguish. The storm had come unexpectedly, heavy rain slashing the streets, turning sidewalks into slick rivers. Adrian had been driving around frantically, searching for Daniela and the baby, when the rain forced him to pull over. The city's lights reflected on the wet asphalt, painting a world that seemed cold, indifferent, and dangerous. He hadn't expected to find her at a roadside cafe. She had ducked in moments before, carrying the baby, soaked and trembling. She hadn't noticed him at first. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair plastered to her face. The small child in her arms looked up at him with wide, curious eyes, and something inside him broke further. Adrian hesitated outside the cafe, drenched, unsure if he should approach. Every instinct told him to run to her, to sweep her into his arms and apologize endlessly, but he knew that proximity now was a double-edged sword. One wrong move could shatter the fragile trust she had left. He took a deep breath, gathering courage. Daniela, he called softly. She turned sharply, eyes narrowing, the baby shifting against her chest. What are you doing here? She demanded, voice guarded. I couldn't stay away, he admitted, rain dripping from his hair, clothes clinging to him. I had to know you were safe. She took a step back instinctively, but there was nowhere to go. The cafe's tiny interior was crowded, the windows fogged, the storm unrelenting outside. It was impossible to leave unnoticed. Their forced proximity was immediate, inescapable. I said, leave me alone, she whispered, trying to keep the child between them, a shield she hoped would hold him off. Adrian's voice was low, urgent. I won't. Not this time. I need to be here, with you, even if you hate me right now. I need to protect you and him. Her eyes flashed with anger and pain. Protect us? You left us. You abandoned us. And now you think standing here in the rain makes up for it. I know it doesn't, he said quietly, but I'm not leaving again. I can't. The world can throw anything at us. I'll be here. I swear it. The tension in the room thickened. Other patrons shuffled past, glancing at the couple and the baby, unaware of the storm raging between them. Every sound, the hiss of the coffee machine, the clatter of dishes, the rain pounding outside, was amplified in their shared, fragile bubble. Daniela clenched the baby tightly, looking away. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't even know if I want to. Adrian's jaw tightened, but his hands remained open, non-threatening. I'll take whatever chance you give me. Even a little. I want to be here. With both of you. The baby stirred, cooing softly, reaching toward Adrian with tiny fingers. Daniela's heart ached at the innocent gesture, a reminder of how much had been lost, and how much was still possible. She sighed, exhausted, and leaned against the wall, holding the child close. The storm outside mirrored the storm within her. Fear, anger, longing, and a flicker of hope, all tangled together. Fine, she said finally, her voice trembling. But you stay over there. No sudden moves. No promises you can't keep. Adrian nodded, understanding. I can do that. I'll stay as far as you need me to. And so, by circumstance and necessity, they were together in the same space, sharing the same storm, unable to leave one another entirely. Forced proximity, whether by rain, fate, or stubborn hearts, created a fragile tension that neither could ignore. As minutes stretched into hours, they began to navigate the delicate balance between anger and longing. Adrian brought a small cup of tea over, placing it carefully on the table. For you, he said softly. Daniela hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing against his. Neither of them pulled away. The smallest gestures, the shared warmth of a cup, the quiet sighs, the mutual watching of the baby, began to chip away at the walls they had erected. She remembered the nights before everything fell apart, the simple moments of connection. The way he had smiled when she laughed, the way he had held her hand without words. Even now, those memories softened the edge of her anger, though she refused to show it. Adrian noticed her tension, the tightness in her shoulders, the wary glance at every movement he made. He understood that trust had to be earned, not demanded. He stayed still, letting her dictate the pace, speaking only when necessary, using small, quiet gestures to show he had changed. Hours passed. The storm raged outside, relentless, but inside the cafe, a fragile rhythm emerged. They shared a silence that was not emptiness, but a tentative bridge, a beginning of connection. At one point, the baby reached for Daniela, and she lifted him slightly. Adrian mirrored the movement, instinctively reaching for the child. And for the first time in days, Daniela allowed herself to watch him interact with their son. His tenderness was unguarded, sincere, a small glimpse of the man she had once loved and the man he could still be. I didn't know if you'd even care, she admitted quietly, her voice almost drowned by the rain outside. I care more than I've ever cared about anything, he replied. I failed you, I failed him, but I won't fail again. Not if you let me try. Her eyes softened, just slightly, as the storm began to ease. She realized that forced proximity had done more than trap them physically. It had forced a reckoning with their emotions, their fears, and their lingering love. The cafe lights reflected off the wet windows, illuminating their faces. The distance between them was shrinking, not because words alone had bridged the gap, but because shared presence, simple, unavoidable, necessary, had begun to undo the ice around their hearts. Daniela looked at Adrian, then down at the baby. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. Maybe this proximity, this storm, this impossible night, could be the start of something real. Adrian caught her gaze, eyes pleading, full of raw emotion. He did not step closer, respecting her space, but his presence spoke volumes. He would stay. He would endure whatever distance or anger remained. For the first time in days, both realized that being together, even reluctantly, was the only path forward. The storm outside began to subside, leaving puddles on the street and a fresh, clean smell in the air. Inside, a different kind of storm had begun to settle, the tentative calm after the emotional chaos. For now they were side by side, separated by caution but united by circumstance. And that, they both knew, was enough to start the slow, painful journey toward understanding, forgiveness, and the fragile hope of rebuilding what had been broken. The small motel room was quiet, the baby finally asleep, breathing softly against Daniela's chest. She traced gentle circles on his tiny back, her mind spinning with memories she hadn't dared confront for weeks. She had left not just out of anger, but out of fear. Fear of being hurt again. Fear of trusting too easily. Fear of letting anyone see how vulnerable she really was. She had needed to protect herself and the baby. Even from the man she still loved. Even in this quiet, safe place, the pull of their shared past gnawed at her. She remembered the laughter-filled mornings, the soft kisses, the feeling of belonging she had once felt with Adrian. That life, though fractured, still existed in her memory, calling to her. Her phone vibrated, and her heart leapt and sank at the same time. She knew it was him. She wanted to answer, to hear the regret, to let him in, but she couldn't. Not yet. Adrian had been searching relentlessly. From hospitals to old friends' apartments, to the park where they had first met, he asked anyone who might have seen them. Each dead end tore at him, making his chest ache with guilt. Finally, a distant friend mentioned seeing Daniela at a small, quiet motel on the outskirts of town. He arrived, heart pounding, unsure of what he would find. Each step toward the door was heavy with fear and hope entwined. He knocked softly. "Daniela." His voice was trembling. "It's me. Please, I just need to see you." No response. He tried the door. It was unlocked. His breath caught, relief and dread mixing. He stepped inside slowly, careful not to startle her. The room was modest, dimly lit, a soft blanket in the corner with a small crib nearby. Daniela froze at the sound of his voice. Her heart leapt and sank at the same time. "Adrian," she whispered, holding the baby closer. I didn't know where you were," he said, scanning the room for signs of danger. "I've been looking everywhere. I'm so sorry." Daniela's eyes narrowed, defensive but conflicted. "Sorry? Do you even understand what it feels like to lose trust, to feel abandoned in your own home?" "I do," he whispered. "I've felt every bit of that nightmare since the moment I realized. I've lost you both. I understand more than you think." Silence fell thick and heavy. Daniela saw the raw truth in his eyes, the desperation, the guilt, the unbroken love. Finally, she spoke, words long held inside. "You have no idea how many nights I cried while holding him. How many times I whispered to him that his father loved him. Even when I wasn't sure you would. You weren't there. And I couldn't trust you again." Adrian swallowed hard. Every word was a blade, but he needed it. "I know," he whispered. "I hate myself every second for it. I let temptation blind me. I let a moment destroy everything that mattered. His voice cracked. "I don't deserve you. I don't deserve him. But I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn back what I lost. I swear it." Daniela's resolve wavered. She had prepared for anger, confrontation, and distance, but not for the sincerity in his voice, the raw vulnerability in his presence. "Adrian," she said softly, barely a question. He stepped closer cautiously. "I'm here, Danny. I won't leave again. I can't. I won't. Please, let me prove it to you." She looked down at the baby, heart aching with a mixture of fear and longing. Protecting him had become secondary to understanding if Adrian could truly change, if he could reclaim the family they had lost. "You don't understand," she whispered. "It's not just about last night. It's every broken promise, every time you weren't there when it mattered. And I need to know you've truly changed. That this isn't just words." "I know," he said, lowering his voice. "I can't erase the past, but I can fight for the future. I will fight for you, for him, for us." Daniela studied him for long moments. Every twitch, every falter, every trembling hand told her he was remorseful and determined. She remembered their wedding day, their vows, the laughter in their tiny apartment. She remembered the man she loved, the one who had always made her feel seen. Slowly, the wall of resistance began to crack. "You're not perfect," she said finally, voice soft. "You never were. But maybe you can be better. Maybe you can be what we need you to be." "I will," he promised, taking a careful step closer. Not with words alone, but with every day, every choice, every moment. The baby stirred. Daniela cradled him, and Adrian mirrored her movements instinctively, reaching for the child. She did not pull away. For a brief moment, hope glimmered. A fragile, tentative bridge of trust formed between them. The past had been painful, the wounds deep, but healing seemed possible for the first time. Daniela exhaled slowly, acknowledging the truth she had avoided. He had returned, he had confronted consequences, and he was willing to fight for their family. In that quiet motel room, with the baby sleeping between them and the weight of unspoken truths lifting slightly, they took the first steps toward rebuilding what had been lost. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of the motel room, casting a soft golden glow across the small space. The storm had passed, leaving a quiet calm outside, but inside, a different kind of storm had been replaced with cautious peace. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed, watching Daniela tend to the baby. She moved with a natural grace, whispering little words to him, humming a tune she hadn't remembered singing aloud in months. For the first time since the night everything fell apart, Adrian allowed himself to simply watch, without expectation or demand. He noticed the gentle curve of her smile, the way she tucked stray strands of hair behind her ear, the tender way she soothed their child. Every detail reminded him why he had loved her so deeply, why leaving had been the gravest mistake of his life. Daniela felt his presence without turning. She could sense him watching, and it didn't make her angry. Instead, it made her cautious heart stir with something she had tried to deny: hope. She had kept him at a distance, yes, but seeing him there, so still, so attentive, was a balm she didn't know she needed. Finally she spoke, her voice soft. "You stayed." "I did," he replied, his voice low but steady. "I told you I wouldn't leave. I meant it." She exhaled, a mixture of relief and lingering doubt. "I don't know how to do this anymore. How to let someone in without getting hurt again." Adrian shifted slightly, careful not to cross boundaries. "You don't have to do it all at once. I'm not asking for trust immediately. Just moments. Small ones. Let me show you that I can be different. That I can be here for both of you." Daniela glanced at him, studying the earnest expression on his face. She wanted to pull back, to protect herself, but something about his vulnerability, his willingness to wait, melted a fraction of the wall she had built. "I suppose small moments are okay," she said finally, almost a whisper. Adrian's lips curved into a small, hopeful smile. Small moments can turn into big ones. For the next few hours, they existed in a quiet bubble of normalcy that felt miraculous after weeks of chaos. Daniela fed the baby, and Adrian assisted gently, handing her diapers, burping the child when she needed a moment. Words were sparse but meaningful, filled with subtext of apology, longing, and a shared desire to rebuild what had been broken. At one point, the baby reached out to Adrian, and he laughed softly, a sound Daniela had missed more than she realized. The child's tiny fingers wrapped around his, and Daniela's heart swelled, torn between fear of disappointment and hope that perhaps the man she loved had returned. "Look at him," she murmured, voice thick. "He trusts you already. Even when I can't." Adrian's hand hovered over hers, brushing against hers lightly. "Then I'll earn it," he said. "I'll earn his trust and yours every single day." They spent the afternoon talking quietly, sharing small stories and memories. Adrian revealed little moments from work, anecdotes about mutual friends, and humorous recollections from their early days together. Daniela found herself laughing softly, the sound light and unfamiliar, but freeing. Each laugh chipped away at the tension, creating space for something fragile but real: reconnection. The emotional intimacy was not instant. It was built from these small gestures. Sharing a cup of coffee, watching the baby sleep together, holding hands for just a moment and letting it linger. Adrian never rushed, never demanded, allowing Daniela to control the pace. That patience itself became an act of love, a tangible demonstration that he had changed. When evening fell, Adrian helped her rock the baby to sleep, humming softly, matching the tune she had sung in the morning. The rhythm was gentle, almost hypnotic, and Daniela found herself leaning against him slightly, not fully, not yet, but close enough that the warmth of his presence reached her heart. "You're different now," she said softly, almost afraid the words would shatter if spoken aloud. "I've had to be," he admitted. "I couldn't afford to be the man who failed you again. Not after what I've lost." She looked into his eyes, searching for any trace of deceit or lingering selfishness. There was none. Only a man who had been humbled, who had faced his mistakes, and who now sought to make amends with every fiber of his being. For the first time in weeks, Daniela allowed herself to relax, to believe that maybe, just maybe, the love they shared could survive. Not unscathed, not immediately healed, but alive, present, and worth fighting for. Hours passed in this quiet companionship, punctuated by soft laughter, shared looks, and the occasional coo of the baby. The atmosphere was lightened by small humor. Daniela teasing Adrian about his clumsy attempts at diaper changes, Adrian joking about his failed attempt to make breakfast. These moments, though simple, became the foundation for trust, intimacy, and emotional repair. Later, as the night deepened and the baby slept soundly, Adrian sat beside Daniela, their shoulders almost touching. The silence between them was comfortable now, not tense. "I know we still have a long way to go," he said quietly. "And I know I can't undo the past. But I want to try. Every day. For you, for him, for us." Daniela reached out, lightly resting her hand on his. "Then we'll try," she said softly. "One step at a time. But we have to be honest with each other. Always." Adrian nodded solemnly. "Always." They sat together in that quiet room, the baby sleeping peacefully between them, feeling the weight of the past lift just enough to allow hope to take root. The bond they were forging was fragile, but it was real. And for the first time since the storm of betrayal and loss, both felt the possibility of healing, of moving forward together, and of rebuilding a family torn apart by mistakes but not by a lack of love. As the night deepened, Adrian whispered softly, "I promise. I'll be better. I'll make this right." Daniela allowed herself a small, tentative smile. The journey would be long, the road fraught with challenges, but for the first time in weeks, she believed that love, real, enduring love, was still possible. The calm that had settled over Adrian and Daniela was brutally shattered that evening. A single phone call, sharp and unexpected, broke through the fragile bubble of trust they had been painstakingly building. Adrian's face went pale as he read the text message on his phone. It was from his office, an urgent message revealing that a business mistake he had made weeks ago, during the time he had been distracted by his guilt and search for Daniela, had led to a major financial loss. The news would have been stressful on any other day, but in this delicate moment, it became a catalyst for disaster. Adrian's tension, anxiety, and shame overflowed, and Daniela immediately noticed the change. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, stepping closer, but he barely looked up. It's work. I made a mistake," he admitted, his voice tight, almost cracking. I've caused a serious problem, and I don't know how to fix it." Daniela felt her chest tighten. She had seen him under pressure before, but this was different. She felt the walls of connection, built with so much care, begin to tremble. She wanted to console him, to reach out, but her own fears erupted in an emotional surge she couldn't control. "You're always doing this," she snapped, louder than she intended. "You ruin everything you touch. Even now, when we're finally trying to heal, you bring chaos back into our lives." Adrian flinched at her words, pain flashing across his face. He opened his mouth to explain, to justify, but Daniela wasn't listening anymore. The tension between them escalated rapidly, emotions crackling like static electricity. "You never think about us. About me. About him," she yelled, gesturing toward their sleeping baby. "You only think about yourself, your work, your mistakes, your pride." Adrian's chest tightened. The guilt he had carried for his past mistakes collided with the immediate threat of losing Daniela again. He tried to reach for her hand, but she pulled back sharply. "I can't do this," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "I can't keep forgiving you every time something goes wrong." Her words hit him like a physical blow. For the first time since their reunion, Adrian felt completely powerless. He had fought so hard to rebuild trust, and now it was crumbling before his eyes. His own frustration and sorrow boiled over. "You think I want this to happen?" he said, voice shaking with raw emotion. "Do you think I plan to fail? Do you think I enjoy hurting you?" Daniela shook her head, but her expression remained hard, almost stone-like. "I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know if I can trust anything you do. Not your words, not your promises, nothing." The emotional weight of the confrontation was crushing. Adrian sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Daniela turned away, trying to hold herself together, but the tears kept coming. The baby stirred, sensing the tension, but neither of them moved to comfort him. For a long, heavy moment, silence dominated the room, except for the soft whimpers of their child. Then, as if the universe itself wanted to punctuate their suffering, the motel door creaked. A neighbor's voice called out, asking if everything was okay. The intrusion, small as it was, sent Daniela over the edge. She grabbed her coat, scooping up the baby, and moved toward the door. "I can't stay here," she cried, the decision final, irrevocable. "I can't do this with you." Adrian's voice cracked as he called after her, but it was too late. She was already gone, the door closing behind her with a quiet but decisive finality. He fell back into the chair, staring at the empty space where she had stood, feeling as though the floor beneath him had disappeared. The room, once a haven for tentative healing, was now a graveyard of fractured trust and shattered hope. Adrian's mind raced. He replayed every mistake, every misstep, every lost opportunity to prove himself. The shattering reality hit him harder than any business failure ever could. He was in danger of losing the love of his life and his child, the very people who gave his existence meaning. Daniela, meanwhile, walked through the empty motel hallway, the baby cradled tightly to her chest. Her tears had dried somewhat, leaving a trail of exhaustion and heartache. She needed distance to breathe, to think, to process the whirlwind of emotions. She loved him, she always had, but the raw pain of betrayal, compounded by his new failure, left her feeling powerless, raw, and utterly alone. She paused outside under a flickering street lamp, looking at the sleeping child. The weight of the responsibility, combined with heartbreak, was almost unbearable. Yet in the quiet of the night, amidst the city's faint hum, she realized something. The love she felt didn't simply vanish, even in the wake of devastation. It was still there, hidden beneath layers of hurt and fear, fragile but alive. Back in the motel room, Adrian sat in the dim light, staring at the walls. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding, the echo of Daniela's anger and departure reverberating through his mind. The shatter point had arrived, not as a sudden explosion of violence, but as a slow, painful collapse of everything he had worked to rebuild. He understood the stakes more clearly than ever. To win them back, to regain trust, he would have to endure the worst of their anger, face the consequences of every misstep, and accept the possibility of rejection. This moment was the crucible that would test whether love could survive amid betrayal and chaos. The night stretched on, silent but charged with tension. Both Adrian and Daniela were alone with their emotions, confronting their deepest fears, regrets, and longings. This act of shattering, though devastating, was also a necessary precursor to redemption. Without reaching this emotional low, they could never appreciate the journey back toward each other, nor the fragility and resilience of their love. Adrian whispered into the empty room, a vow to himself as much as to the universe. "I will fix this. I will make it right. I will not lose you, not now, not ever." Meanwhile, Daniela held her child close, letting the night embrace her, understanding that leaving, though painful, was a step toward clarity. Her anger, grief, and fear would eventually collide with the undeniable truth of love that still lingered between them. The shatter point had been reached. Trust broken, hearts raw, and the future uncertain. Yet within this devastation, both felt the pulse of possibility. They were at their lowest, but love, tested and tried, was still present, waiting for courage, patience, and vulnerability to bring them back together. The night outside was quiet, but inside Adrian's apartment, or rather, the temporary hotel he had returned to after Daniela left, felt heavy with the weight of solitude. He sat alone on the edge of the bed, the baby's absence echoing through the empty room. The silence was deafening, amplifying every thought, every regret, every failure he had ever made. He stared at the phone, hesitating. Should he call her? Should he send a message? Or should he wait, respecting her anger and need for space? The internal battle tore him apart. His heart screamed for her, for their child, for the chance to fix what he had broken, but pride, fear, and the haunting possibility of rejection made him hesitate. Meanwhile, Daniela sat in a small cafe several miles away, rocking their baby in the high chair, sipping cold coffee. Her mind replayed the evening's confrontation. Adrian's pained expressions, the harsh words they had exchanged. She loved him, she always had, but her mind was tangled with doubt and fear. Could she trust him again? Could she allow herself to hope without being destroyed once more? She looked at their child, so small, so innocent, so dependent on both of them, and something within her stirred. The undeniable truth that the family they had almost lost still mattered. The love they shared had not vanished, despite the storm of anger, mistakes, and miscommunication. Adrian, unable to bear the silence any longer, finally made his choice. He picked up the phone and dialed her number, his hands trembling. He didn't script his words, didn't plan a grand speech. He just spoke from the heart, raw and vulnerable. "Daniela, it's me. Please just listen." The line was silent for a moment, stretching out like an eternity. Then her voice came, cautious, wary. "Adrian, what do you want me to say? I want you to know that I've thought about everything. Every mistake, every failure, every moment I hurt you. I'm not perfect. I never was. But I choose you. I choose him. I choose us. And I want to spend every day proving that I can be the man you need." Her chest tightened. Every word touched something deep within her, stirring emotions she had tried to suppress. "And what if I can't trust you again?" she whispered, almost afraid of her own answer. "Then I'll wait. I'll earn it. I don't care how long it takes. I can't change the past, but I can fight for our future. Please, let me." Tears welled in Daniela's eyes. She looked at the baby, who was sleeping peacefully, and realized the depth of her own desire to reunite, to rebuild, to forgive. Carefully, slowly, but genuinely. Her voice trembled as she finally responded. "Adrian, I don't know if I can forgive everything, but I want to try. For him. For us." Relief, raw and overwhelming, coursed through Adrian. His hands shook as he held the phone closer, voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. That's all I ask. That's all I ever needed." They agreed to meet, cautiously, in a quiet park where the baby could play safely and they could talk without distractions. When Adrian arrived, he saw Daniela sitting on a bench, the baby giggling in her lap. The sight of them together struck him profoundly. Every ounce of anger, every regret, every moment of despair melted into the background. He approached slowly, hands slightly raised as if to show he meant no harm. "Daniela," he said softly. She looked up, eyes wary but softened by the faintest trace of hope. "Adrian." They stood in silence, the tension thick but tempered by the willingness to try again. Adrian knelt slightly, offering his hand to take hers. "I choose you. I choose him. I choose us. Always." Daniela hesitated, tears streaming, then placed her hand in his. A spark of warmth traveled through both of them. "I choose to try." Her voice was soft, fragile, yet full of determination. Together, they walked slowly through the park, holding hands, their child safely between them. Every step was tentative, every glance a negotiation of trust, but with each moment, the bond grew stronger. They weren't fully healed, but the decision had been made. They would face the future together, aware of the fragility of love, but committed to nurturing it. The emotional intensity of Act 8 lies not in dramatic confrontation, but in the slow, deliberate choice to risk vulnerability again. Both Adrian and Daniela confront their fears, their pride, and their desire for connection. The act is introspective, focusing on dialogue, small gestures, and shared presence, highlighting the delicate process of reconciliation. By the end of the evening, they sit on the bench under a canopy of trees, the baby asleep between them. Adrian wraps an arm around Daniela's shoulders, and she leans in cautiously but willingly. The silence now is not empty, but filled with promise. The promise of patience, understanding, and a renewed commitment to each other and their child. The choice has been made. They will fight for love, for trust, and for the family they almost lost. The storm is not fully over, but the first rays of hope pierced the darkness. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting soft light across the park where Adrian and Daniela had chosen to meet again. The air was filled with the faint scent of spring flowers, a stark contrast to the emotional storm they had endured. The tension of the past weeks had not vanished completely, but it had transformed into something gentler. Cautious hope, fragile trust, and the beginning of a new bond. Adrian arrived first, holding the baby gently in his arms. His hands shook slightly, not from fear this time, but from anticipation and relief. He saw Daniela approaching, eyes bright yet tentative. The sight of her made his heart ache with a mix of remorse, love, and gratitude. "Morning," he said softly, voice carrying the weight of sincerity. Daniela smiled faintly, a small curve of lips that spoke volumes of her willingness to try again. "Morning," she replied, stepping closer. They sat on a nearby bench, the baby nestled safely between them. The quiet was comforting now, a shared space where no words were necessary. Yet every glance communicated understanding, forgiveness, and commitment. Adrian broke the silence first, gently touching Daniela's hand. "Thank you for trusting me again. I know it won't be easy, but I promise to keep choosing us, every single day." She squeezed his hand, feeling a warmth she had thought lost. "And I promise to try, to be patient, and to let love grow again. We'll take it slowly, but we'll take it together." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the weight of the past, the anger, the betrayals, the mistakes seemed distant. What remained was the undeniable truth that their love had survived, and with effort and care, it could flourish anew. They laughed softly as the baby cooed between them, a sound that symbolized hope and new beginnings. Adrian playfully made silly faces, causing the baby to giggle uncontrollably. Daniela joined in, her laughter blending with theirs. The simple joy of these shared moments reminded them why they had fought so hard to reunite. "You've changed, you know," Daniela whispered, her eyes twinkling. "I had to," Adrian admitted, smiling gently. "For you, for him, for us." The conversation flowed easily now, free of tension. They shared dreams for the future. Weekend picnics, bedtime stories, and quiet evenings together. The baby, a living reminder of both their love and the fragility of trust, nestled comfortably against them. Every gesture, every touch, reinforced the bond they were rebuilding. Later, as the sun climbed higher, Adrian lifted the baby into his arms. He and Daniela walked hand in hand through the park, the world around them alive with the warmth of spring. Their connection had been tested, shattered, and painstakingly rebuilt. They were no longer two people broken by circumstances, but a family united by choice, love, and resilience. The morning ended with a shared sense of peace. They knew challenges would come again, but the foundation had been laid. Honesty, patience, vulnerability, and unwavering commitment. The storm had passed, and they had emerged stronger together. Before leaving, Adrian turned to Daniela, his voice gentle and full of promise. "No matter what comes, we'll face it together. You, me, and him. Always." She smiled, leaning into him, feeling the warmth of certainty and love. "Always," she whispered back. The park, once just a place for a meeting, had become the symbol of their rebirth. A reminder that love, when chosen repeatedly and nurtured with care, can endure even the darkest storms. CTA question for viewers. What would you do if love was tested like Adrian and Daniela's? Could forgiveness and trust rebuild a broken relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read your stories. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Your time, your support, and your presence here mean more than words can say. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or kept you watching, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in love. See you in the next story.